Ranger Week on the Paper Crafters Library blog, and we're focusing on Tim Holtz distress stains. Every day this week, we'll share different techniques using the stains, and each day we'll also be giving away a set of 12 distress stains generously donated by Ranger. We'll share details on how to enter at the end of this video. Now in today's video, I'm going to introduce you to this amazing product. As shown in the photo, there are 36 different colors of distress stains in the traditional distress colors, along with Picket Fence, which is a white distress stain that has slightly different properties than all the other stains, and we'll discuss that later on. Distress stains are a fluid version of distress ink, so it's not the same ink that's in the ink pad, and it's not the same ink as in the distress reinker. It has totally different resins, which gives it all the same properties that distress is known for, so things like blendability and being reactive with water, but it's in a much more fluid form. Now, as with distress ink, it's also a translucent ink, meaning you can see through it to whatever's underneath. What distress stains were designed for was quick and easy coverage of backgrounds and large surface areas. Now, distress stains come packaged in these 1-ounce bottles made out of a hard density plastic, meaning when you squeeze the bottle, there's not a lot of give. Compared to something made out of a softer plastic like this one, you can see when I squeeze it, there's a lot more give. By having these packaged in this harder plastic bottle, it keeps you from accidentally over-squeezing and applying too much distress stain to your surface. Now when you unscrew the lid, you're going to see a fabric dabber top, and this conceals a built-in one-way spring valve, and this controls the release of distress stains from the bottle. Now the first time you use the distress stain, you're going to need to prime the valve, and you can do this one of two ways. You can either press down on it with your finger or flip the bottle upside down and press it onto your nonstick craft sheet or whatever surface you're working on, and you'll hear a little click which tells you the valve has been primed. There you can hear what that sounded like. So to start the flow of distress stain, you flip the bottle upside down and you press the dabber top down against your surface. And then you can give it a little squeeze just to get it started. After that, to keep the stain flowing, all you have to do is just keep pressing it down and rubbing it across your surface like so. Now, if you want to release more distress stain, so let's say you want to cover your surface area faster, or you just want a more intense color, then with your bottle still pressed down, if you squeeze the bottle, you can see you get more of the distress stain released, which you can then go ahead and spread across your surface. Now to stop the release of more stain, you simply lift the bottle from your surface, so you're not applying pressure to the dabber anymore, and what this does is stops the fluid flow. So you can see now, even if I flip my bottle upside down, nothing's coming out of it. To start the fluid flow, you have to have pressure applied against the dabber top, so pressing it against your surface and then moving it back and forth, that's going to release the distress stain from the bottle. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there are 36 distress stain colors plus Picket Fence. I've printed out a swatch chart from the Ranger website onto white cardstock to give you the truest impression of what all the colors of distress stain look like. Now I also went ahead and printed this chart out onto manila cardstock so that you could see the effect of the surface on how the color appears. Because, as I mentioned earlier, distress stain is translucent, meaning you can see through it, you see through it to the surface below. So the color of your surface will affect what the color of your stain ultimately looks like. And just to illustrate further, I've got here craft and black cardstock. So here I'm taking the color Tumbled Glass. You can see when I apply it to craft cardstock, you just see the blue faintly. And if you compare that to my white, and I'll just slide the manila under here, you compare it to the manila, you can see it doesn't even come close to showing what the true color is. It's what we're seeing is the craft through, and that's altering the appearance of the color of the tumbled glass. Now taking black cardstock, such as this black tag here, you can see no matter how much of this I apply to the surface, it's only showing up as a wet spot. You can't even see what color it is. Now Picket Fence is different than all the other distress stains because it's only semi-translucent. It contains a white pigment, which is what gives it its color along with some opacity. And that allows it to show up on darker surfaces like craft cardstock and black cardstock. Now, before you apply picket fence, you need to take an extra step. With regular distress stain, you can just take off the lid and then press and go. With picket fence, because it contains the white pigment, that pigment needs to be dispersed evenly in the solution. So to achieve that, there's a little mixing ball inside. So you need to make sure that every time you go to use the white picket fence distress stain, you give the bottle a good shake, and you'll hear the mixing ball mixing it up. Now, once you've given it a good mix, all you have to do is apply it in the exact same manner. Now, when the picket fence first goes onto the surface, it's going to look quite intense. But one of the things you'll notice as the color dries, it tends to take on a little bit more of a whitewashed effect. So even if as it's drying here, as you're watching it in the camera, you can start to see the surface below. You can see the craft and you can see the black. Now, you can increase the opacity by continuing to add layers of the white. So right now I've got this really pretty whitewashed effect, but if I were to go back and just continue adding layers of my distress stain, then you can see how it appears much more white. And the more layers you add, the more opaque it becomes. Now there's so many different things that you can do with picket fence and use it in so many unique ways, either on its own or combined with the other distress stains. I'll go more in depth about that in a separate video. Now, because distress stains are so liquid, you can apply them to large areas. You've already seen me apply it to this tag. Now, I've used it in other ways. For example, I've used it to create a background for this card, and we have a separate video for that. Here you can see what it looks like applied to a canvas. So the canvas was covered with a craft resist paper, both on the top and along all four sides, and then the broken china distress stain was applied all over the surface of that. Now here's an example of distress stains used in an art journal. The sky effect and the grass effect for this poppy page was achieved using broken china and then a combination of shabby shutters and peeled paint distress ink. So again, fantastic for quickly and easily covering a surface. Now, in addition to using distress stains on dry surfaces, you can also use them on a wet surface. So here I have, again, a number 5 manila tag, and I'm taking a water bottle and I'm just spritzing it and saturating my tag with the water. I'm now going to take my barn door distress ink, and you can see as I apply it to the surface how it starts to bleed out. And you get a totally different effect than when it sinks rapidly into the surface, like when I just applied it to a dry surface. You can add more water, and then you can see how the colors are just blending so nicely into one another, and what a neat effect you get using it on the wet surface. So here's what my distress stains applied to my wet surface looks like once it's been dried. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention, when you're working with your distress stains on the wet surface like that, you don't have to worry about contamination of your colors. The spring valves are one way, so they dispense the distress stain, but they're not going to suck distress stain back in. So if your red accidentally goes over your yellow, it's not the red bottle, the valve is not going to suck in any of the wild honey. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're using it. If the fabric dabber top happens to get stained or contaminated by a color, what I usually do is just take it and wipe it off on a surface. And I have found, like this one has some little dark stains on it. I don't know where that's from, but I found, you can see I'm applying it to a tag. It doesn't show up. I'm still getting the pure color being dispensed. So in addition to using your distress stains on papers and cardstocks, you can really use it on any kind of a porous surface. So for example, if you have white embellishments, you can use your distress stains to color those embellishments. So here I've got a piece of seam binding ribbon, and I'm just going to take my barn door, and you can see I rub my dabber top over it, and it stains my ribbon this really pretty barn door color. Here you can see an example of a dried piece of seam binding I had that I used worn lipstick on. Now this is an example of a fabric flower embellishment. This was cut from a May Arts ribbon. You can see if I just press my dabber on it, I can get my color to it. Now if I don't want it to be completely covered, so I want to see a little bit of that white, I can just rub my dabber on it and then you get this kind of mottled color, or you just saturate it with more color and it completely colors my flower, and I now have this really pretty red flower. Now right now what's really popular is a lot of those Canvas Mistable products. You can use your distress stains for that to color those products. So there's all sorts of things that you can do with the distress stains to alter the color of your embellishments to match your projects. Now wood, being a porous surface as well, can also be altered with this. Here you see I have an example of a wooden letter, and I'm just going to take some of my broken china and rub it on, and you can see how the broken china absorbs right into the wood, and you can still see the grain of the wood underneath, which is really neat, but I've now got this nice blue letter. Here you can see I have this wood frame that I purchased at my craft store. It was just $1, and I've just taken the broken china and I'm just rubbed it against the wood frame, and I'm just squeezing the bottle to dispense stain faster. You can see how quickly and easily it's allowing me to cover the surface of the wood frame, and because of its translucency I'm still seeing the beautiful pattern of the wood underneath. So the most important thing to keep in mind when you're altering the color of items using your distress stains is that it has to be on porous surfaces. So paper, wood, fabric, it's not going to work on plastics or metals. So that gives you a good overview of distress stains, and although you've seen me use them in a lot of different ways, it doesn't even begin to cover all of the fabulous techniques you can do with them. So over the course of Ranger Week on Paper Crafters Library, we'll be focusing on a whole bunch of different techniques using distress stains. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, each day this week, Monday to Friday during the week of April 16th to the 20th, 2012, we're giving away the set of 12 distress stains that you see pictured here, which were generously provided by Ranger. To enter to win, all you have to do is visit the Paper Crafters Library blog and leave a comment in the post you see here. If you're watching this video from somewhere other than our blog, you'll find a direct link to this post in the video description section. While you're there, we invite you to check out the benefits of becoming a Paper Crafters Library member by clicking on the Benefits of Membership link at the top of our blog. All 5 winners will be announced on our blog on Friday, April 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you on the blog!